Harry has shown himself to be a man of absolutely not only no judgment, but a person who is surrounded by very poor advisors.
And then you've got Invictus, which is losing sponsors left, right and centre. And now this?
No, this is a major blow to Prince Harry. Prince Harry is done. Can you expand on that?
He's tarnished by losing a case which has cost them at least £50 million in costs. For Harry now, it's downhill faster than he can imagine.
Because this £50 million defeat shatters his reputation, proves that he lied in court, dragged a whole other major group of celebrities into his pathetic game and achieved nothing apart from wasting tens of millions of pounds.
For years, Prince Harry has faced criticism, family tension, courtroom battles and endless headlines. But the latest claims from royal biographer Tom Bower are taking the controversy in a much more serious direction. According to Bower's interpretation, Harry may now be dealing with something far bigger than another public setback, because questions are reportedly growing around his reputation, his relationship with King Charles, and even his future connection to the Invictus Games.
On the other hand, do they want to be associated with Harry? The latter, obviously not. So I think everyone is now pausing to wait to see. The gunfire has gone off. Mm-hmm. What happens when the smoke disappears?
Bower goes into great detail about how detrimental Harry and Meghan's presence was to Senabale. Their toxic brand, it drove fundraising down the drain.
Audi pulled out and many others.
And they really struggled to generate revenue for this charity. They really struggled to generate any sort of fundraising, I should say, because Harry and Meghan had become such a toxic brand. And I think we're seeing something very similar with Invictus. It's the Meghan show.
They're really saying is, we cannot deal with this man. Mm-hmm. We don't trust the fifth in line of succession. Well, if that doesn't cast him into the wilderness, he'll notice in a few days how it will.
Bower, the author of books including Revenge and Betrayal, has built a reputation for making highly critical claims about Harry and Meghan Markle. This time, he argues that Harry's recent legal troubles have damaged his public image in ways that may be difficult to reverse. Reports and commentary surrounding the case have also raised questions about potentially enormous legal costs, although exact figures and final outcomes should be treated carefully unless officially confirmed. But Bower's main argument is not simply about money. He claims Harry's credibility came under intense pressure during the courtroom proceedings and suggests that questions surrounding Harry's testimony could follow him long after the legal battle itself is over. That is Bower's interpretation of events, not an established conclusion that should automatically be accepted as fact. According to Bower, Harry may not have fully understood how serious the situation had become until the damage was already done.
This isn't just a defeat in a civil case. This is Harry being exposed as not telling the truth under oath in the King's court. Mm-hmm. This is serious stuff. And of course, in public, he has been trained always to smile. We know from his book that the smiles are often faked, so he's faking it now.
He thought it was a slam dunk and he was going to win this case.
I worry a bit about Harry's judgment at the moment because he's picked this ridiculous fight with the royal family, the monarchy, in regard to his accommodation, with he said, she said. Buckingham Palace claimed that they were waiting for a response to the offer of accommodation. The Sussexes had said, we said yes, then it was withdrawn. That was a hot mess. Then the handling of the 24/7 security when he's in the UK. And then this ill-judged legal action against the publishers of the Daily Mail. It just doesn't seem like he's getting anything right at the moment.
He believes this moment could mark the beginning of a much harder period for the Duke of Sussex, with fewer opportunities to rebuild relationships and repair his public image. And this is where the Invictus Games enter the conversation. For years, Invictus has been one of the strongest parts of Harry's public identity. The organisation was created to support wounded, injured and sick service members and veterans, giving competitors an international platform focused on recovery, resilience and community. But Bower suggests that people connected to the organisation may now be reconsidering whether Harry's growing controversies are becoming a distraction from its original mission.
There's a father who's, in inverted commas, lost his son and can't see his grandchildren, all that sort of thing. So you've got to feel sympathy for that. But I mean, honestly, Harry should have been stripped of God knows what ages ago. His behaviour has been absolutely appalling. He doesn't care. He clearly doesn't. He pretends to, but he doesn't care.
And if he has to pay some massive legal fees as a result of being wrong, because over there in the UK, it is loser pays, unlike here in America, where generally everybody takes their own and walks away. Good. Maybe that'll really teach him a lesson. And you didn't prove your case. You had the opportunity to prove your case. You failed to do so. That's how the legal system works. Yes, no, he's never seen a situation in which he is not the victim.
I have to say, I think it's frightfully funny that he was shut out of Buckingham Palace. I mean, I know it's undergoing renovation, but I mean, how many bedrooms must they have there? He was told, no, you can't come.
There is another layer to the story, and it involves King Charles. Bauer paints a deeply strained picture of the relationship between father and son. He argues that the king's limited contact with Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet has created emotional pressure behind the scenes. Bauer goes even further, alleging that access to the grandchildren has effectively become leverage in the ongoing family dispute. That is an extremely serious accusation, and there is no public evidence proving that Harry has intentionally used his children in this way. Still, Bauer claims the situation has contributed to growing frustration inside royal circles. According to his account, King Charles may have previously been more willing to compromise because he wanted to maintain some connection with his grandchildren.
Except that Harry was blackmailing his father.
Yes.
Do you want to see your grandchildren or not? And the king, not being in his best of health and all the rest of that, and being a man who on the whole probably wants to see his grandchildren, wavered. I think that ship has passed.
Absolutely.
Entitled, arrogant, out of touch.
And he still thinks that his dad, at the snap of a finger, can change things for him. And King Charles proves over and over again that he wants to be reasonable, he wants to be fair, and that he's not like that. He's not going to call and make special arrangements for you security-wise.
But the king didn't. The king had apparently snapped. His patience had snapped. And so he said, no, the offer has been withdrawn and I'm sticking with that. I'm not changing my mind because you've revealed that you're coming to Buckingham Palace.
But Bauer now believes the king's patience has reached its limit. The tension reportedly became even more obvious during discussions surrounding Harry's accommodation in Britain. Bauer claims Harry was offered royal accommodation months in advance, but initially rejected the arrangement before changing his position close to the visit. According to this version of events, the palace was then expected to reorganise staff, security, meals and other arrangements with very little notice. Bauer portrays the situation as another example of Harry expecting the royal household to adjust around his decisions. But this time, according to the biographer, the response was different.
Harry is just increasingly, Christine, becoming a huge embarrassment to King Charles, who I think was right to lock up Buckingham Palace and say, you're not coming anywhere near it this time, sunshine. But I think he needs to say that is going to be permanent, Christine, don't you?
Alice knows what's happening in every part of our society. So they knew he was going to lose the case today. They knew that he was not going to get rabbit protection. They knew what he's playing at. And I think that is what you're seeing. They're distancing themselves. He was given a last chance and he blew it.
The palace reportedly refused to move everything around at the last minute, signalling that the old pattern may finally be changing. And if Bauer's wider argument is accurate, the growing tension over Harry's legal battles, family relationships, and public controversies could soon create even bigger questions about the one major institution still closely connected to his name, the Invictus Games. According to Tom Bauer, the disagreement over royal accommodation was never really about finding Prince Harry a room or following palace procedure. He believes the refusal carried a much bigger message, one aimed directly at Harry after years of damaged relationships and public disputes. In Bauer's interpretation, the palace had reached the point where officials no longer believed they could reliably work with Harry. He claims the rejection was a deliberate signal from King Charles and senior advisors that trust had almost completely disappeared. That is Bauer's view of the situation, not a confirmed explanation from Buckingham Palace. But his wider argument becomes even more dramatic when he turns to what palace officials allegedly knew about Harry's legal battles. Bauer suggests that senior figures inside the royal household had a much clearer understanding of Harry's position than Harry himself.
And Harry now is at the mercy of the grey men who he hated so much.
Yeah.
The bee, the wasp, and the rest of these people who he loathed. These are the grey men now who will decide his fate. And he's powerless to influence it, as is Meghan.
Will Elton John, in the end, pay for the whole lot? I don't know if Harry has any money. If he does, is it the last of his mother's inheritance?
According to him, palace advisors closely follow political developments, public opinion, legal disputes, and security matters affecting the royal family. Because of that, Bauer claims officials expected Harry to face serious setbacks in court and were not surprised when his efforts to regain taxpayer-funded police protection failed. He also argues that palace advisors had become deeply skeptical of stories about reconciliation, private briefings, and reports suggesting Harry's relationship with his family was improving. In Bauer's version of events, those around King Charles were quietly creating distance while Harry continued pushing forward. The timing is central to his argument. Harry's possible return to Britain with his family became the subject of intense media attention. Soon afterward, another unfavourable development arrived in the security dispute. Then reports emerged that Harry would not be staying at Buckingham Palace. One setback followed another, creating the appearance that Harry's options were becoming increasingly limited. Bauer believes this was no coincidence. He argues that Harry had been given opportunities to rebuild trust with his family, but failed to use them effectively. Whether that interpretation is fair remains open to debate, but Bauer's conclusion is clear. Harry may now have far less influence over his future relationship with the monarchy than he once believed. And the people who could shape what happens next are some of the same palace officials Harry strongly criticised in his memoir, Spare. Harry famously described certain senior courtiers with nicknames including the Bee and the Wasp. Bauer argues that these experienced advisors now have considerable influence over how the palace handles Harry's visits, requests, security concerns, and possible attempts at reconciliation. That creates a strange reversal. The institution Harry publicly criticised may now control many of the decisions affecting whether he can rebuild a working relationship with his father and the wider royal family. But Bauer does not believe Harry reached this position entirely on his own. His account goes back several years to a gathering at Elton John's home in the south of France. According to Bauer, this was a crucial moment in Harry's growing legal campaign against sections of the British press. Bauer claims Harry became surrounded by lawyers, campaigners, and other figures who encouraged him to believe that taking legal action against newspaper publishers could lead to major victories. He uses the word ensnared to describe what he believes happened.
Harry was ensnared at Elton John's house in the south of France years ago to trust this group of lawyers and activists. And in the end, the gravy train has come to an end. And Harry was used by them. He won a lot of money. Mm-hmm. But this time, they thought they had it all sewn up because they had a concocted, fraudulent statement, and they didn't realize it was so phony. Until, of course, one wonders how they got it in the first.
According to this argument, Harry became increasingly committed to expensive legal battles, while advisors and lawyers continued collecting substantial fees. Bauer suggests earlier victories against other newspaper groups may have convinced Harry that another major case would also end in his favour. The expectation, according to Bauer, was that the legal strategy was strong and success was within reach. But if Harry was repeatedly assured that victory was likely, the bigger question is whether he fully understood the financial and reputational risks he was taking. Because Bauer's account suggests that while Harry continued moving deeper into these legal battles, the people surrounding King Charles were already preparing for a very different outcome. According to Tom Bauer, one of the biggest problems with Prince Harry's legal strategy was the information supporting the case. He claims lawyers relied heavily on a statement that later failed to stand up under serious examination, raising questions about why it was considered reliable in the first place.
His misfortune is, and was, that you've got to always realize that lawyers have one vested interest, and that's earning money. Mm-hmm. And he was a money machine until today, when they've all lost money, and they lost a lot of money, his lawyers. And that is the point, that he's lost his advisors. He's lost what we used to call the grey wise men, who weren't always wise, but they were always grey.
Yeah.
But at least they gave some advice, you can consider it.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have that anymore because he can't even afford it.
Bauer argues that Harry trusted the advice he received and became convinced the legal campaign was worth pursuing. In his view, that points to one of Harry's biggest weaknesses, placing too much confidence in people whose interests may not always match his own. The biographer suggests that lawyers continued earning substantial fees regardless of whether Harry eventually succeeded. From Bauer's perspective, that created an uncomfortable situation where Harry carried most of the financial and reputational risk, while the professionals around him were paid to keep the legal battle moving forward. Again, that is Bauer's interpretation, and there is no established evidence proving that Harry's lawyers intentionally misled or exploited him. Still, Bauer believes the consequences have now become impossible to ignore. He argues that Harry has lost more than money or another legal battle. According to Bauer, the Duke of Sussex has gradually become separated from experienced advisors who might once have challenged his decisions, warned him about possible consequences, or encouraged him to take a different path.
And he allowed David Sherborne, the slippery lawyer, to just convince him of a conspiracy that, remember, it's just important to point out, this was driven by criminals, criminal phone hackers and investigators and everything involved in Byline Times and hacked off, Max Mosley's money, Hugh Grant's campaigning. And he convinced himself via David Sherborne that all of this had happened to him. It had never happened. It was a fantasy.
I don't think he has good advisors around him, or really many advisors. I know he's got one, Liam Maguire. I think most of the rest of them have left him. And of course, he doesn't have the Royal Palace machinery around him. The one that he hates so much, those people, those men in grey suits that he rails against, are actually the people that protected him for many years and gave him good advice.
And Bauer makes another damaging claim. He suggests Harry's financial position may no longer allow him to maintain the same level of professional advice and support he once had. That creates a complicated picture. On one side, Bauer portrays Harry as someone who may have trusted the wrong people and received poor guidance, but he refuses to remove Harry's personal responsibility from the story. Nobody forced Harry to begin these legal battles, Bauer argues. Nobody forced him to reject warnings or continue pursuing strategies that carried enormous risks. In Bauer's assessment, Harry repeatedly made decisions that weakened his position while surrounding himself with advisors who failed to stop him. Then Bauer turns his attention to Harry's personal relationships, and his language becomes even more controversial. He has repeatedly claimed that Meghan Markle has had an unhealthy influence over Harry's decisions.
I think it's his attitude. I think he feels the victim in every situation, if I had to guess. That's the drama that he's bringing to every situation.
Is he a bit out of his depth as well? Because I think he thinks of himself as this global philanthropist and this influencer. He's on the same level as Barack Obama or some other figure like that.
He is now the person who is the liar. He is now the person who is the perpetrator, and there are victims of his vendetta, of his feud, of slaying the dragons. He's self-slain. He's caused his own. It's a reputational suicide. Let's put it no milder than that.
Right.
And he is now going to find a way somehow to save himself.
Bauer has used extremely harsh descriptions of Meghan in past interviews, but those comments represent his personal opinion and should not be treated as established facts. When discussing Harry's legal troubles, Bauer argues that the damage goes beyond ordinary embarrassment. He believes Harry has seriously weakened his own reputation by pursuing battles that ultimately exposed him to even greater criticism. Bauer also mocks Harry's public image as someone willing to challenge powerful institutions. In his view, Harry wanted to present himself as the person capable of defeating the system, but instead ended up damaging his own position. The same criticism appears in Bauer's discussion of Harry and Meghan's long-running claims of unfair treatment. According to Bauer, the couple can no longer rely on presenting themselves only as victims of powerful institutions. He argues that their public decisions and accusations have created consequences for other people as well, changing the way some critics now view the entire conflict.
He's never seen a situation in which he is not the victim, and he enjoys being the victim. That fake car chase was one of the greatest examples where there was no car. You cannot have a car chase in New York City. Anybody who's visited New York City knows you can't go 2 square blocks without hitting a red light or a biker or a delivery man that will slow your roll. But secondly, remember in their documentary on Netflix, used very loosely, how, you know, she was pretending like, oh, is he gone yet? Is he still there? It was one guy on a Vespa. They tried to make it sound like they were being surrounded by hordes of paparazzi.
These are extremely strong opinions, and Bauer has repeatedly defended his willingness to stand behind his claims publicly. He has even challenged critics to question him directly about what he has written. But underneath all the insults and dramatic language is a more personal question. If Harry was facing one of the most difficult legal battles of his life, dealing with financial pressure and increasing distance from his family, who was actually standing beside him?
Where was Meghan when he lost his rabbit case, when he sat down and was reaming the royal family to the BBC? Meghan mysteriously disappears. When Harry is going through difficult times, Meghan is MIA. She's nowhere to be found. So I don't think, even though Harry's team is teasing we could get a Meghan Markle appearance on Friday, I don't think we'll see her, because when Harry's having a difficult time, Meghan doesn't want to be involved.
I have to say, I don't think she should have abandoned Harry in his day of need. You know, this has not been a good day for Harry. Would he want his wife by his side? Yes, probably.
It's interesting. It's
not very
true.
nice. If he'd won, I have to say, if he'd won this case, would she be standing by his side outside the courtroom making a very impassioned speech with lots of word salad? I think she probably would.
That question becomes especially important when looking at Meghan's role during the court proceedings. Because according to Bauer, her absence from the courtroom revealed something much bigger about the situation Harry now finds himself in. Meghan Markle's absence during Prince Harry's legal setback quickly became another major talking point, and Tom Bauer believes it fits a pattern he has been watching for years. According to his interpretation, Meghan is highly visible when Harry is connected to successful events and positive publicity, but becomes far less visible when controversy takes over. Bauer points directly to the Invictus Games. In recent years, Meghan has appeared beside Harry at major Invictus events, including appearances in Vancouver, where photographers closely followed the couple's movements. Her outfits, speeches, public appearances, and interactions often generated headlines far beyond the sporting competition itself. Critics have argued that this attention sometimes shifts the conversation away from the competitors and toward Harry and Meghan.
And then you've got Invictus, which is losing sponsors left, right and centre. And now this?
No, this is a major blow to Prince Harry. And I know that you cover him the way I do. I mean, we've seen an aggressive shift in the last 6 months to a year, showing up in Ukraine, challenging President Trump, challenging Putin, writing the article in the New Statesman about anti-Semitism in the UK.
Supporters, however, could argue that the couple's international profile helps bring greater attention to the Games. Bauer clearly takes the more critical position. He suggests Meghan's absence during Harry's courtroom setback was deliberate. Reports placed her away from Britain at the time, and Bauer claims she may have been considering how Harry's damaged public image could affect her own future. There is no confirmed evidence that Meghan intentionally distanced herself from Harry for reputational reasons. Still, Bauer argues that appearing publicly beside Harry immediately after such a difficult legal outcome may have created unwanted attention for her as well. Interestingly, Bauer also claims Meghan had previously warned Harry against continuing some of his legal battles. According to his account, Meghan understood from her own experiences with the courts that legal victories are never guaranteed. Bauer believes she recognised the danger of repeatedly challenging powerful newspaper groups and expected Harry's luck to eventually run out.
There's Invictus, which is losing sponsors left and right. I can't think of the last time he did a well-paid speaking engagement. You know, it's not going well, is it?
It's not going well. I think he's going to do an event for Scotty's Little Soldiers, which I don't know much about.
Good luck with the soldiers.
Kind of small...
I mean, run for the hills, boys.
The question is whether Boeing and the other corporate sponsors stay on board. My suspicion is that they will weigh it up, consider it very carefully. On the one hand, they want to rightly support wounded soldiers and servicemen and women. And on the other hand, do they want to be associated with Harry? The latter, obviously not.
Harry continued anyway. From Bauer's perspective, that decision left him carrying the consequences largely on his own. While Meghan reportedly stepped away from the courtroom drama, Harry remained at the centre of the criticism, financial questions, and growing concerns about his credibility. Then Bauer makes another deeply personal argument about their marriage. He claims the relationship is now held together more by dependency than romance. According to his interpretation, Meghan benefits from the royal title and global attention connected to Harry, while Harry depends heavily on Meghan for emotional stability and direction. That is Bauer's opinion, not a verified description of their private marriage. But he believes Meghan's behaviour during Harry's difficult moments reveals something important about how damaging the controversies surrounding him may have become. And this is where the story moves beyond their marriage. If someone as close to Harry as Meghan is carefully considering when and where to appear beside him, Bauer argues that major organisations connected to Harry may be asking similar questions. The biggest of those organisations is the Invictus Games. According to Bauer, corporate sponsors and people involved with the event could be examining whether Harry's continuing controversies are creating unnecessary risks for an organisation built around wounded, injured and sick service members and veterans.
Bauer goes into great detail about how detrimental Harry and Meghan's presence was to Senebale. Their toxic brand, it drove fundraising down the drain.
Audi pulled out, and many others.
And they really struggled to generate revenue for this charity. They really struggled to generate any sort of fundraising, I should say, because Harry and Meghan had become such a toxic brand.
That distinction matters. The Invictus Games are not supposed to exist as a celebrity platform or another chapter in royal family drama. The event was created to give injured and sick military personnel and veterans an opportunity to compete, rebuild confidence, and share stories of recovery with an international audience. Many competitors have overcome life-changing physical injuries, serious mental health challenges, and difficult transitions after military service. Their experiences are the heart of Invictus. But critics have increasingly questioned whether media attention surrounding Harry and Meghan sometimes overshadows those competitors. And according to Bauer, that concern may now be turning into something much more serious. Because if sponsors and organisers begin to believe that Harry's controversies are damaging the mission of Invictus, the debate will no longer be about headlines, family arguments, or courtroom setbacks. It will be about whether the organisation can protect its future while remaining so closely connected to Prince Harry. The growing controversy surrounding Prince Harry becomes far more serious when the conversation turns to the people the Invictus Games were created to support. Wounded, injured and sick service members and veterans are supposed to remain at the centre of the organisation. But Tom Bauer argues that Harry's continuing public disputes may be creating problems that extend beyond his own reputation. According to Bauer, the biggest concern is sponsorship. International events require enormous financial support, and Invictus depends on partnerships, donations, and major companies willing to connect their names to its mission. Those organisations may strongly support veterans while still paying close attention to the reputation of the public figures representing the Games. Bauer claims some sponsors are now carefully reviewing that relationship. He specifically points to companies such as Boeing and suggests executives could be asking a difficult question. Can they continue supporting wounded service members and veterans without becoming caught up in the controversies surrounding Prince Harry?
Background of having lost control of Setbacks, a charity that he co-founded in memory of his mother. African Parks, he's still on the board of that charity. They're mired in allegations of abuse of African tribes. Yikes.
Yeah.
Then there's the Archwell Foundations or Philanthropies or whatever it's called this week, which has effectively been shuttered.
Yeah.
It is fascinating to watch how a couple have blown it, have now, in their desperation, gone to self-destruct mode.
They had everything.
They had everything.
There has been speculation and reporting about changes in sponsorship relationships, but claims that particular companies have permanently abandoned Invictus should not be presented as confirmed without official statements. Still, Bauer believes the broader uncertainty is enough to create serious pressure behind the scenes. His argument is simple. Sponsors want stability. They want public attention focused on the competitors, their recovery and the positive mission of the Games. What they generally do not want is to spend significant amounts of money only to see the event overshadowed by courtroom disputes, royal family conflicts, and constant controversy involving its most famous representative. And Bauer claims there is already another example of how this situation could develop. He points to Centre Bell, the charity Prince Harry co-founded to support children and young people affected by HIV and AIDS in southern Africa. In Bauer's book Betrayal, he argues that controversy surrounding Harry and Meghan damaged fundraising relationships and made the organisation's work more difficult. That interpretation remains heavily disputed, and the complicated leadership conflict surrounding Centre Bell involved accusations and disagreements from multiple sides. But Bauer sees the situation as a warning for Invictus. According to his argument, Harry's celebrity once attracted attention, donors, and international interest. But if the controversies surrounding him become stronger than the causes he represents, organisations may eventually question whether his involvement is helping or hurting their mission. That is the concern Bauer believes could now be developing around Invictus. Are sponsors simply waiting for the latest controversy to disappear? Are organisers examining Harry's future role? Or are critics exaggerating normal sponsorship changes and presenting them as evidence of a crisis?
Harry has lost now 2 cases in front of Nicklin. He's not going to risk a third. And Meghan, I think, was shrewd enough to realise that. I mean, you've got to be as thick as Harry not to realise that there comes a point where you can't push your luck too far.
He should have been stripped of God knows what ages ago. His behaviour has been absolutely appalling. He doesn't care. He clearly doesn't. He pretends to, but he doesn't care much for his father's feelings and the rest of his family. And William, of course, has taken a very firm stand on this.
There are still no confirmed public signs that Invictus has decided to remove Harry from the organisation he helped create. But Bauer claims people connected to the games may be watching developments carefully before making long-term decisions. And that possibility carries far more weight than another negative headline. Invictus has remained one of Harry's most widely respected achievements. Even many people who strongly criticise his decisions have continued praising the games and the opportunities they provide for veterans. Losing influence over that organisation would represent something completely different from losing a court case or facing another wave of criticism. It would mean Harry had become separated from one of the few major institutions still strongly connected to his public identity. Bauer believes that is why the current situation could become so important. If sponsors begin withdrawing support, organisers become concerned about the event's reputation, and media attention continues shifting away from competitors toward Harry's controversies, difficult decisions may eventually become unavoidable. The question is no longer simply whether Harry can repair his reputation. It is whether the Invictus Games can continue protecting its mission while remaining so closely associated with someone whose personal controversies repeatedly dominate the headlines. And if Bauer's predictions are correct, the people making that decision may not wait very long before choosing which future they believe gives the veterans the strongest chance to succeed. According to Tom Bauer, the pressure surrounding Prince Harry may be entering its most difficult stage yet. His prediction is that several controversies could collide at the same time, leaving Harry with fewer options, weaker family relationships, and serious questions about the organisations still connected to his public image.
William now has got even more ammunition to say to his father, enough's enough. Let us get rid of this family. Let us even strip them of their titles. They're doing us huge harm, just in the same way as Andrew did. And I think Charles will now, the king now, will realise that there's a lose-lose. Any association with Harry has got to be losing.
It's none of your business what other people think of you. Take your licks like a grown-up and go on living your beautiful life. If you whine and sue about it all the time, people hate you. And the press that buys ink by the barrel is only more incentivized to loathe you and to feed the people who loathe you with more negative stories. So it's just the reality of being a public figure. You've got to take it like a grown-up. Stop suing people who have endless supply of time and anger toward you. And when you get a lesson from a judge, take it humbly, quietly, and move on.
The first issue involves Centre Bell. The charity Harry co-founded is already caught in a bitter dispute involving former trustees and the organisation's leadership. Bauer believes the continuing conflict could create another damaging public battle for Harry, especially after the legal setbacks and criticism he has already faced. The exact outcome remains uncertain, and the allegations surrounding Sentebale have been disputed by the different people involved. Still, Bauer argues that Harry can hardly afford another controversy that keeps his name connected to lawyers, accusations, and public disagreements. Then there is the royal family. Bauer claims Prince William may now have even stronger reasons to push for greater distance between the monarchy and Harry and Meghan. In his view, every new controversy strengthens the argument that maintaining close public connections with the Sussexes creates more problems than benefits for the institution. He even suggests discussions surrounding royal titles could become more serious. There is currently no confirmed announcement that Harry and Meghan are about to lose their titles, and comparisons with Prince Andrew involve very different circumstances. But Bauer believes William could eventually argue that stronger action is necessary to protect the monarchy from continuing controversy. The biggest question is how King Charles responds. According to Bauer, the king may have reached a point where repeated attempts to rebuild trust no longer appear realistic. If that interpretation is accurate, Harry could find himself increasingly separated from the institution that shaped most of his life. And Bauer believes the situation could become even more difficult from here. He argues that Harry and Meghan once had extraordinary opportunities. They had global attention, royal connections, major media deals, charitable projects, and the ability to build an independent public life after leaving royal duties. But Bauer claims repeated disputes, lawsuits, family conflicts, and controversial decisions have gradually weakened that position.
The question is only whether they go quietly and stay quiet, or whether they scream to earn a bit more money at the royal family's expense. That is the untold answer.
That's why I do doubt that the king will see them, because I think he's grown increasingly impatient. And really, the Buckingham Palace thing was highly embarrassing and really messy.
So you think that Charles meeting the grandchildren and Meghan could be off the table now?
I think so. I actually do think so.
It's been
maybe
threatened.
the children.
It's jeopardy, maybe the children.
Yeah, I think so. If I was the king, I'd be infuriated. But of course, any man, who's suffering from cancer wants to see his grandchildren. He hasn't seen them for 4 years. So I won't begrudge him if he does buckle. But I also wouldn't begrudge him if he was very ticked off right now.
That remains his interpretation, and the future could develop very differently. Harry and Meghan still have supporters, business projects, media attention, and international recognition. But one question is becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. What happens if the Invictus Games begin creating greater distance from Harry? For years, Invictus has remained one of the strongest parts of his public legacy. If sponsors continue supporting the Games, organisers defend Harry's role, and the focus returns to the veterans, Bauer's predictions may prove exaggerated. But if major partners withdraw, internal concerns grow, or Harry's involvement becomes the subject of serious debate, the consequences could be enormous. That is why the next developments surrounding Invictus may reveal more about Harry's future than another royal argument or courtroom headline ever could. Do you think Tom Bauer's predictions are convincing, or has the criticism of Prince Harry gone too far? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video, share it with someone who follows the latest royal and celebrity drama, and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. And before you go, click the next video appearing on your screen right now for even more celebrity drama, shocking claims, and major developments you may have missed. Thanks for watching, and see you on the next one.